Captain Zethkalar stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the data coming from their scanners. His blue skin turned a deeper shade as he read the numbers again and again. The planet below them should not exist with life on it, yet their instruments showed millions of creatures moving around on its surface. "Navigator Scylla, check these readings one more time," he said to the six-limbed creature sitting at the navigation console. Her thin arms moved quickly over the controls as she ran another deep scan of the world they had found. "Captain, the readings are correct," Scylla replied, in her clicking voice. "This planet registers as a Class 12 on our danger scale. I have never seen anything like this before." Chief Science Officer Mordun's crystal body flickered with confused patterns of light. His species had studied thousands of worlds across the galaxy. They knew what made a planet safe for life and what made it deadly. This world broke every rule they understood. "Show me the atmospheric readings," Mordun said as he moved closer to the main display screen. The data made his crystal form flash bright red with alarm. "The oxygen levels are poisonous to most life forms. The atmospheric pressure changes constantly. There are massive electrical storms that could destroy our ship if we got too close." Zethkalar walked to the viewing port and stared down at the blue and green world spinning below them. White clouds swirled in patterns that looked almost alive. He could see dark spots on the surface that their computers identified as massive storm systems. "What about the geological activity?" he asked. Mordun pulled up more data on the screen. "The entire planet shakes and moves constantly. The ground splits open in lines that run for thousands of kilometers. Molten rock shoots up from underground in hundreds of places. The magnetic field shifts and changes direction. Radiation from their star bombards the surface daily." Scylla's multiple eyes focused on different parts of the data display. "Captain, look at this climate information. The temperature swings from freezing cold to burning hot depending on location and season. Frozen water falls from the sky in chunks heavy enough to damage equipment. Wind speeds regularly reach levels that would destroy most structures." Zethkalar felt his heart beating faster as he processed all this information. In his 40 years of exploring space, he had never encountered a world so hostile to life. The Federation had strict rules about planetary classification. Worlds were rated from Class 1, which meant perfectly safe, to Class 10, which meant certain death for any visitor. No species in galactic history had ever evolved on a world rated higher than Class 6. "Run the classification program again," he ordered. "There must be an error in our computers." Mordun's crystals dimmed as he worked through the calculations a third time. "No error, Captain. This world scores a 12 on our danger scale. By all scientific understanding, nothing should be alive down there. Yet something is," Scylla added, pointing to the life signs detector. "Not just bacteria or simple organisms. Complex creatures, many different species, and one of them appears to have built structures and vehicles." Zethkalar moved to the communications station and activated the long-range sensors. The images that appeared on screen made his blood run cold. Cities covered parts of the planet's surface. Vehicles moved along pathways between the cities. Flying machines soared through the poisonous atmosphere. "They have achieved spaceflight," he whispered. "Look at these readings from their orbital space." The sensors detected artificial objects circling the planet. Some were clearly communication devices. Others appeared to be observation platforms. A few showed signs of being transport vessels designed to carry the planet's inhabitants to other worlds. "Impossible," Mordun said, his crystal body now flashing rapid patterns of disbelief. "No species could evolve intelligence on such a hostile world. The constant environmental pressure would prevent complex brain development. They would spend all their energy just surviving." Scylla zoomed in on one of the cities. The images showed countless individual creatures moving around on the surface. They appeared to be bipedal, with 4 limbs and relatively small bodies compared to most galactic species. "They look almost fragile," she observed. "How do they survive in such conditions?" Zethkalar studied the images carefully. The creatures seemed to move with confidence and purpose. They were not hiding in underground shelters or wearing protective suits. They walked around in the open air as if the deadly environment was completely normal to them. "Captain," Mordun said, his voice filled with concern, "I recommend we maintain a safe distance from this world. Any species that could evolve in such conditions must be incredibly dangerous. They would have to be the most aggressive predators the galaxy has ever produced." "Agreed," Scylla added quickly. "Think about it, Captain. To survive on a Class 12 Deathworld, they would need to be tougher and more violent than anything we have encountered. They probably see everything as a threat to be destroyed. Zethkeller nodded slowly. The logic made perfect sense. A world that hostile would only allow the strongest and most ruthless creatures to survive. These beings would have evolved to fight everything around them every moment of their lives. They would see his peaceful exploration vessel as an easy target to attack and destroy. Set course for the edge of this solar system, he ordered. We will establish a monitoring station at safe distance and observe these creatures before making any decisions about contact. Wise choice, Captain, Morden said with relief. We should study their behavior patterns before approaching. If they are as dangerous as their world suggests, we need to be prepared for anything. As the ship moved away from the deadly planet, Zethkelar wondered what kind of monsters they had discovered. Any creature tough enough to thrive on a Class 12 Deathworld would be beyond anything the peaceful Federation had ever encountered. He made a mental note to request additional security ships before attempting any kind of communication. The blue and green world grew smaller in the viewing port, but Zethkelar could not stop thinking about its inhabitants. What did the most dangerous predators in galactic history look like? What weapons did they use? How aggressive would they be toward visitors from space? He had no way of knowing that at that very moment, far below on the planet's surface, a creature called Jake Martinez was throwing himself out of a flying machine with nothing but a piece of fabric to keep him alive. And Jake Martinez was laughing with pure joy. The observation post took 3 weeks to build. Captain Zethkelar insisted on placing it behind the fourth moon of a gas giant, far enough from the Deathworld to ensure their safety. Every crew member wore protective gear while working outside the ship, even though they were millions of kilometers away from the deadly planet. Navigator Scylla activated the long-range scanners and focused them on the planet's surface. The images that appeared on their screens made the entire crew gather around in nervous silence. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about survival behavior. Focus on that creature there, Science Officer Morden said, pointing to a bipedal figure standing at the edge of a massive cliff. The being appeared to be wearing some kind of fabric covering and had strange objects strapped to its back. They watched in stunned silence as the creature deliberately launched itself off the cliff and plummeted toward the ground far below. Just when it seemed the being would be smashed to pieces on the rocks, a large piece of colorful fabric deployed from its back and slowed its descent. Battle training, Zethkelar said with certainty. The creature is practicing combat drops from high altitude. The human they were watching was actually Jake Martinez, a weekend skydiver from Colorado, who was celebrating his birthday by doing his first solo cliff jump. The colorful fabric was his parachute, and the strange sounds coming from his mouth, that the aliens interpreted as war cries, were actually whoops of joy and excitement. Scylla shifted the scanner to focus on a different area where several creatures moved through deep blue water. The aliens watched a female human swimming alongside massive predator fish with rows of sharp teeth. The creatures could easily tear her apart, yet she moved calmly among them without any protective equipment. She must be their most skilled warrior, Morden observed. Look how she approaches those apex predators without fear. She is clearly mapping their attack patterns for future combat operations. The human was actually Lisa Park, a marine biologist who had been studying shark behavior for 10 years. She wore only basic diving gear and carried a waterproof camera to document the magnificent creatures she swam with. The expression on her face showed wonder and excitement, not the calculating coldness the aliens expected from a military scout. The scanning system detected movement on one of the planet's mountain ranges. A lone creature was scaling an almost vertical rock face using nothing but its bare hands and feet. Occasionally it would drive metal spikes into cracks in the stone and attach itself to them with thin ropes. Reconnaissance specialist, Captain Zethkelar said immediately. It is mapping strategic positions on high ground. Notice how it chooses the most difficult path possible to avoid detection by enemy forces. Connor Hayes was actually just enjoying his favorite hobby of free climbing. He had taken a week off from his job as an accountant to challenge himself on some of the most difficult rock faces in Yosemite National Park. The metal spikes were climbing anchors for safety, and the thin ropes were his lifeline if he lost his grip. He climbed not to scout enemy positions, but because he loved the feeling of pushing his body and mind to their limits. The next discovery made the alien observers even more confused. Their scanners detected a group of creatures deliberately moving toward one of the planet's atmospheric disturbances. The massive storm system showed winds that could destroy buildings and electrical activity that could kill anything it touched. "They are launching an assault on the weather itself," Scylla said in amazement. "Their aggression knows no bounds." The humans were actually a storm-chasing team led by Maya Rodriguez, a meteorologist who studied severe weather patterns. Her team used specially designed vehicles to get close to tornadoes and hurricanes to gather scientific data. They carried advanced measuring equipment and cameras, not weapons for fighting the storm. When Maya's team reached the edge of the storm system, they began taking measurements and photographs. Their faces showed excitement and fascination as they documented the incredible power of nature. The aliens interpreted their scientific equipment as battle sensors, designed to find weak points in the atmospheric disturbance. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, another human was doing something that made Morden's crystal form flash bright red with alarm. Carl Thompson descended in a small vehicle toward the bottom of one of the planet's deepest oceanic trenches. The pressure at that depth would crush most spacecraft, yet this creature was heading straight down into the abyss. "Suicidal bravery," Zethkalar whispered. "It is willing to risk certain death to explore enemy territory." What kind of species produces warriors this fearless? Carl was actually a deep-sea explorer who had spent his career studying life in the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. His submersible was specially designed to withstand the extreme pressure, and he was equipped with lights and cameras to document the strange creatures that lived in the deep. He had made this journey dozens of times before, each time filled with excitement about what new discoveries he might make. The most disturbing observation came when they focused their scanners on a human who appeared to be camping next to one of the planet's volcanic activity zones. Dr. Elena Vasquez had set up her equipment just a few hundred meters from flowing lava. She moved around the dangerous area collecting samples and taking measurements as if the molten rock posed no threat at all. "She is studying the planet's geological weapon systems," Morden concluded. "This species must be planning to weaponize their world's natural disasters against other planets." Elena was actually a volcanologist who had dedicated her life to understanding how volcanoes work. She wore protective suits when necessary, but often worked in areas where the heat and toxic gases would be deadly to most life forms. Her research helped predict volcanic eruptions and potentially save thousands of lives. But the aliens saw only a warrior gathering intelligence about her planet's natural weapons. As days turned into weeks, the alien observers began to notice a pattern in the creature's behavior. They did not seem to be conducting these dangerous activities out of duty or desperation. The facial expressions and body language suggested something the aliens found impossible to believe. These Deathworld predators appeared to be enjoying themselves. "Captain," Scylla said one day after watching a human named Ben Clark climb a mountain during a blizzard, "I think we may have misunderstood something about these creatures." "What do you mean?" Zethkalar asked. "They are making sounds that our computers translate as laughter." 3 months of observation had passed when Science Officer Morden made a discovery that shattered everything. The alien crew thought they understood about the Deathworld creatures. He was monitoring the planet's communication signals when he detected something that made his crystal form flash rapid patterns of complete confusion. "Captain Zethkalar, you need to see this immediately," Morden called out with urgency in his voice. The captain hurried over to the communication station, where Morden had isolated several message transmissions from the planet's surface. The universal translator was working to decode the meaning of what appeared to be commercial advertisements. "These messages are promoting travel to the Deathworld," Morden said in disbelief. "But that makes no sense. Why would the inhabitants advertise their own planet to themselves?" Navigator Scylla joined them at the console and studied the translated messages. Her 6 arms trembled as she read the words that appeared on the screen. The advertisements were not targeting the planet's current inhabitants, but rather creatures who lived on other worlds and distant star systems. "They are inviting others to come. Visit their Deathworld," she whispered. "These creatures have spread to other planets and now they return here for some kind of ritual purpose." Captain Zethkalar read through several of the advertisements with growing alarm. One message promoted something called Extreme Earth, adventures, and promised visitors the chance to experience authentic Deathworld thrills that were impossible to find anywhere else in the galaxy. "Look at this one," Morden said, highlighting another transmission. "It advertises something called volcano boarding and promises participants will slide down the sides of active geological weapon systems while the molten rock is still flowing. The Advertisement was actually from Steve Morgan's adventure tourism company. Steve had built a successful business taking humans from the safer colony worlds back to Earth for vacation experiences they could not get anywhere else. His clients were mostly second and third generation colonists who had grown up on peaceful worlds but still carried the human genetic drive for challenge and excitement. Scylla discovered more advertisements that made the alien crew even more confused. Travel companies were promoting activities like swimming with apex predators, jumping out of aircraft with minimal safety equipment, and something called tornado chasing that involved deliberately driving vehicles toward the planet's most dangerous atmospheric disturbances. This cannot be warfare training, Captain Zethkiller said slowly. No military would advertise their secret combat. Preparation methods to enemy species. The aliens continued monitoring the communications and discovered travel reviews written by creatures who had visited the Deathworld and returned to their colony homes. These reviews used words and phrases that the universal translator had difficulty processing. One review praised an activity called whitewater rafting, where participants climbed into small boats and deliberately entered fast-moving water filled with rocks that could destroy their vessels. The reviewer described the experience as absolutely thrilling and the best vacation ever and recommended it to anyone looking for real adventure. Another review detailed something called bungee jumping, where creatures attached elastic cords to their bodies and threw themselves off high bridges and cliffs. The reviewer wrote about the incredible rush and pure adrenaline and said they were already planning to return next year to try an even higher jump. Captain, Morden said with his crystal body now flickering confused patterns, these creatures appear to be describing pleasurable experiences. The translator keeps using words like fun and exciting and amazing when processing their communications about these deadly activities. The breakthrough moment came when they intercepted a personal message between two of the creatures. A being identified as Amy Foster was communicating with her sister who lived on the Deathworld. Amy was apparently residing on a colony world with lower gravity and more stable weather conditions. The message says she finds her current world boring, Scylla reported with disbelief. She complains that the stable environment and safe conditions are not interesting enough for her. She is requesting permission to return to the Deathworld for what she calls a vacation. The aliens listened as Amy Foster described her plans to engage in something called glacier climbing, where she would scale massive formations of frozen water using metal tools and rope systems. She expressed excitement about the danger involved and mentioned that the possibility of falling into deep cracks in the ice was part of what made the activity appealing to her. She is not describing military training, Captain Zethkiller said quietly. She is describing recreation. More messages revealed that the Deathworld had become a destination for creatures seeking what they called adventure tourism. Families with offspring traveled there specifically to experience the dangerous conditions that other species would consider uninhabitable. The young creatures participated in activities called summer camps, where they learned to navigate hostile wilderness areas and survived in conditions that would kill most galactic life forms. Navigator, Scylla discovered communications from travel writers who visited the Deathworld to document its attractions for others. These writers described restaurants built in locations that the Federation would classify as active disaster zones. They wrote positive reviews about eating meals while volcanic activity created light shows in the sky, and seismic activity shook the ground beneath their feet. They have turned their Deathworld into entertainment, Morden said with wonder. Instead of fleeing from the dangers, they have embraced them as sources of enjoyment. Ito, aliens found documentation of something called extreme sports competitions, where Deathworld creatures gathered to see who could perform the most dangerous activities with the greatest skill. Winners received prizes and recognition for risking their lives in creative ways that other species would consider pure insanity. One competition involved creatures racing vehicles across terrain so rough it would damage military equipment. Another featured beings who threw themselves from aircraft and performed acrobatic maneuvers before deploying fabric wings at the last possible moment. A third competition required participants to ride boards across ocean waves during storm conditions. Captain, Scylla said with awe in her voice, I do not think these creatures see their world as hostile at all. They see it as a playground. The revelation changed everything the alien crew thought they understood about survival psychology. These Deathworld inhabitants had not been shaped into aggressive predators by their hostile environment. Instead, they had somehow learned to find joy in challenges that would terrify the most battle-hardened Federation warriors. "They do not fear their Deathworld," Captain Zethkalar said, with growing understanding. "They love it." Captain Zethkalar made a decision that went against every rule in the Federation handbook. After 3 months of watching the Deathworld creatures, he realized they needed to make direct contact. Not because these beings posed a threat, but because they represented something completely new in galactic history. "We will establish communication with them," he announced to his nervous crew. "These creatures may hold knowledge that could benefit the entire Federation." Science Officer Morden's crystal form flickered with alarm patterns. "Captain, that violates first contact protocols. We have no idea how they will react to visitors from space. They could see us as invaders and attack immediately." Navigator Scylla wrapped her 6 arms around herself in a gesture of fear. "What if they try to force us to participate in their dangerous activities? They might think we are here to join their death games." Despite his crew's concerns, Captain Zethkalar ordered preparations for a contact mission. They chose a remote location in the mountains of a continent the humans called North America. The area seemed less populated than other regions, and their scans showed only a small group of the creatures moving through the wilderness. The contact team consisted of the captain, Morden, and 2 security officers. All wore full environmental protection suits designed to handle toxic atmospheres and extreme weather conditions. They carried emergency beacons that could transport them back to the ship instantly if the Deathworld creatures proved hostile. They landed their shuttle in a clearing surrounded by tall vegetation the humans called trees. The environmental suits immediately began warning about dangerous atmospheric conditions, unstable ground composition, and the presence of numerous life forms that registered as potential threats. "Remember," Captain Zethkalar told his team through their communication system, "these creatures have evolved to survive in conditions that would kill us within minutes. Show respect for their abilities, but be prepared to retreat if they become aggressive." The first human they encountered was a being called Kevin Price, who was leading a group of other humans along a narrow path through the wilderness. Kevin wore minimal protective covering and carried a large pack filled with supplies. When he saw the heavily armored aliens emerging from their spacecraft, his face displayed what appeared to be curiosity, rather than fear or anger. "Hello there," Kevin said in a friendly tone that confused the alien's universal translator. "Are you folks okay? You look like you might be overheating in all that gear." The translator struggled with the concept of concern for the alien's comfort, rather than immediate hostility. Captain Zethkalar had prepared for many possible reactions from the Deathworld predators, but friendly worry about their equipment had not been one of them. "We are visitors from distant worlds," the captain replied through his suit's communication system. "We come in peace to learn about your species." Kevin's companion, a human female named Lisa Bell, joined the conversation. "Visitors from space? That's incredible. You picked a great spot to land. The weather's perfect for hiking today. You should really consider getting out of those suits and enjoying the fresh air." The suggestion that they remove their life support equipment sent waves of panic through the alien contact team. Mordun's crystal body began flashing emergency warning colors, while the security officers checked their escape beacon systems. "The atmospheric composition of your world is toxic to our physiology," Captain Zethkalar explained carefully. "We require protective equipment to survive in your environment." Lisa Bell looked genuinely concerned. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, if you can't take the suits off, at least let us show you around the area. There's a really beautiful waterfall about a mile up the trail. The view is absolutely spectacular." The humans began walking along what they called a hiking trail, expecting the aliens to follow. The path led through terrain that the Federation would classify as extremely hazardous. Loose rocks could cause falls, overhanging branches could strike unwary travelers, and the uneven ground posed constant risks of injury. Yet the humans moved through this dangerous landscape with casual confidence, pointing out features they found interesting or beautiful. They seemed genuinely excited to share their environment with visitors from other worlds. "See that cliff over there?" Kevin said, gesturing toward a massive vertical rock formation. "Last month we had a group of rock climbers tackle that face. Took them 6 hours to reach the top, but they said it was the best climb of their lives. The aliens stared at the cliff with horror. The rock formation looked completely unstable, with loose stones that could fall at any moment and crush anyone attempting to climb it. The fact that humans deliberately scaled such structures for entertainment confirmed their status as the most fearless creatures the galaxy had ever produced. As they continued along the trail, the humans encountered what their database identified as a large carnivorous mammal. The creature had dark fur, massive claws, and teeth designed for tearing flesh. Captain Zeth Kalar prepared to order an immediate retreat when Park Ranger Tony Hughes stepped forward to observe the predator. "Beautiful black bear," Tony said with admiration. "Probably about 300 pounds. Look how healthy it looks. We're lucky to see one this close to the trail." The bear looked at the group of humans and aliens for a moment, then continued on its way without showing any signs of aggression. Tony explained that bears were common in the area, but generally avoided humans unless they were protecting their young or competing for food sources. "They're magnificent creatures," Tony continued. "I never get tired of seeing them in their natural habitat. Last week one wandered right through our campsite while we were cooking dinner. We just gave it space and enjoyed the show." The casual way the humans discussed sharing their living space with apex predators made the aliens realize they had fundamentally misunderstood the relationship between these creatures and their hostile environment. The humans did not conquer their Deathworld through superior aggression. They had learned to coexist with dangers that would destroy most other species. When the group reached the waterfall Kevin had mentioned, the aliens witnessed something that changed their entire perspective on human nature. The humans stood quietly and watched the water cascade down the rocks with expressions of pure joy and wonder on their faces. They were not analyzing the falling water for tactical advantages or resource extraction possibilities. They were simply appreciating its beauty. "Isn't it amazing?" Lisa Bell said softly. "I've hiked this trail dozens of times, but I never get tired of this view." The moment that changed everything happened when a small rockslide started above them on the mountain trail. Navigator Scylla had joined the contact team for the second day of meetings with the humans, and her 6 arms began shaking with terror as loose stones began tumbling down the steep slope toward their group. The aliens immediately activated their emergency transport systems, preparing to beam back to their ship to escape certain death. But before they could disappear, a young human named Ryan Clark stepped calmly in front of Scylla and guided her to a safe position behind a large boulder. "Just stay here for a moment," Ryan said in a gentle voice. "The rocks always follow the same path down this part of the mountain. Once they settle, we can continue on the trail." Scylla watched in amazement as Ryan read the movement of the falling stones and predicted exactly where they would land. He positioned the entire group in locations where the rocks could not reach them, using knowledge he had gained from years of hiking in these mountains. "How did you know where the stones would fall?" Scylla asked when the danger had passed. Ryan smiled and pointed to various features on the mountainside. "You learn to read the mountain after spending time here. The rocks want to follow the easiest path down, just like water. If you understand the landscape, you can predict where the dangers will go and avoid them." Captain Zeth Kalar realized that what he had just witnessed was not the reaction of a hardened warrior to a combat situation. Ryan had responded to the rockslide with the calm expertise of someone who understood his environment completely. There had been no aggression or violence, just knowledge and skill applied with quiet confidence. "You saved her life," the captain said to Ryan. "Yet you acted as if this kind of danger happens every day." "Well, it kind of does up here," Ryan replied with a laugh. "The mountains are always shifting and changing. You just need to pay attention and respect what they are telling you. Once you learn to work with the environment instead of fighting it, these situations become manageable." This conversation led to a series of cultural exchange sessions that revealed the true nature of humanity's relationship with their challenging world. Marine biologist Kate Johnson explained how her species had learned to coexist with the ocean's predators rather than simply fearing or hunting them. "Sharks are not our enemies," Kate said as she showed the aliens video footage of her underwater work. "They are teachers. Swimming with them teaches us about grace, power, and respect for life. Every encounter makes us better swimmers and better humans." Environmental scientist Marcus Davis demonstrated how human technology worked in harmony with natural forces rather than attempting to overpower them. He showed them wind generators that captured energy from atmospheric disturbances and solar collectors that gathered power from their star's radiation. "We do not try to stop earthquakes or hurricanes," Marcus explained. "Instead, we build our cities to bend with the seismic activity and design our structures to let the wind flow around them. Fighting against nature always fails eventually, but working with it can last forever." Wilderness survival instructor Amy Roberts took the aliens to a training facility where young humans learned to navigate dangerous environments. The aliens expected to see military combat preparation, but instead, they witnessed something much more profound. "We teach children to find joy in challenge," Amy explained as they watched a group of 12-year-old humans learning to cross a fast-moving river. "Every obstacle becomes a puzzle to solve. Every danger becomes an opportunity to grow stronger and smarter." The alien observers noticed that the young humans were not being forced to participate in these activities. They volunteered eagerly and showed genuine excitement when facing new challenges. When one child successfully completed a difficult climbing exercise, the others celebrated the achievement with obvious happiness. "They choose to seek out danger," Science Officer Morden said with wonder. "No one is forcing them to engage with the hostile environment." Captain Zethkalar began to understand the fundamental difference between his species and humanity. The Federation races had achieved peace and safety by avoiding challenges and eliminating risks from their lives. Humans had achieved something far more remarkable by transforming challenges into opportunities for growth and discovery. "We were wrong about everything," he said during a private meeting with his crew. "These creatures are not dangerous because they are aggressive predators. They are extraordinary because they have learned to find strength and joy in adversity." The breakthrough came when adventure photographer Danny Roberts invited the aliens to witness a controlled demonstration of human recreational activities. He arranged for local experts to showcase various extreme sports in a safe environment where the aliens could observe without risking injury. They watched rock climber Nicole Adams scale a vertical cliff face with fluid movements that looked almost like dancing. She explained how each handhold and foothold required complete focus and trust in her own abilities. The concentration on her face showed pure meditation, not the battle fury the aliens had expected. Base jumper Carl Williams demonstrated how humans could safely leap from high places using equipment they had designed and tested over generations. His explanation of wind patterns, fabric dynamics, and landing techniques revealed a deep understanding of physics and engineering principles. "We do not throw ourselves off cliffs to prove our courage," Carl explained. "We do it because the experience teaches us about gravity, air resistance, fear management, and the incredible feeling of controlled flight. Each jump makes us more knowledgeable about the world around us." The final revelation came when the humans invited the alien visitors to participate in a carefully designed introduction to Earth recreation. They offered activities that were challenging but safe enough for beings in protective suits to attempt. Captain Zethkalar found himself walking across a rope bridge suspended over a small canyon. Despite his environmental suit and safety harnesses, he felt genuine fear as the bridge swayed in the wind. But the humans who guided him across spoke with such calm confidence that he began to understand the appeal of controlled risk. "This is what they have discovered," he reported to Federation headquarters in his final transmission. "Humanity has learned that challenges are not obstacles to avoid, but opportunities to become more than they were before. They have turned a Deathworld into a school where every lesson makes them stronger, wiser, and more capable of finding joy in any situation." The Federation voted to establish Earth as a cultural exchange center where other species could safely learn humanity's most valuable lesson. With proper equipment and expert human guides, even the most cautious Federation races could experience the transformative power of chosen challenge. Captain Zethkalar's final log entry changed galactic policy forever. Recommendation: humans should be welcomed into the Federation not as dangerous predators to be feared, but as teachers who can show us that growth comes from embracing difficulty rather than avoiding it. They have achieved something we thought impossible. They have made peace with chaos and found happiness in uncertainty. Earth became known throughout the galaxy as the world where impossible became possible, and where any being could learn to transform fear into excitement through courage, wisdom, and the guidance of the greatest adventure instructors the universe had ever produced.